When 8-year-old twins Zara and Zeke Palmer vanished in a strange fog during their family vacation to Lake Willow, their parents were desperate to find them. 2 weeks later, Zara's one-eared stuffed cat was found perfectly clean on a boulder, 30 miles north of the lake. 3. Days after that, Zeke's wooden train engine appeared in fishing nets 40 miles south, with no explanation for how the toys got there or why they weren't damaged. As the search intensifies, the Palmers discover that Lake Willow holds ancient secrets. The locals whisper about an in-between place and mysterious beings who are drawn to twins. When ghostly footprints appear on the water's surface and glittering stones arrange themselves into messages, the family realizes they're dealing with something beyond this world. Will the Palmer family rescue the real Zara and Zeke from the glittering world beyond our own? And if the twins do come home, how will they know if what returned is truly their children? Watch till the end to find out. Zara, have you seen my blue shorts? Zeke's voice echoed up the stairs of the Palmer house. Zara didn't look up from her careful packing. She was arranging her clothes in neat piles, swimsuits on the left, shorts and t-shirts in the middle, and pajamas on the right. Mr. Whiskers, her one-eared stuffed cat, sat propped against her pillow watching her work. "Mom, washed them. Check the laundry basket," she called back, folding a purple t-shirt into a perfect square. 8-year-old twins Zara and Zeke Palmer had been counting down the days until their family vacation to Lake Willow for exactly 73 days. Zara had drawn 73 X's on her calendar with her favorite green marker. Tonight would be the last X. Their mom, Bria Palmer, appeared in Zara's doorway with a basket of clean clothes. Her curly brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she had dark circles under her eyes from staying up late to finish work projects. "Someone looking for these?" she asked, holding up a pair of bright blue shorts. "Zeke is," Zara answered without looking up. "He always loses everything." "Not like you, Miss Organized," her mom said with a smile, placing a stack of Zara's folded clothes on the bed. "You're just like your dad." It was true. Zara loved order and planning. Her side of the bedroom she shared with Zeke had color-coded books and labeled toy bins. Zeke's side looked like a tornado had hit it, but he always knew where everything was, in his mess. Somehow. Bria sat on the edge of Zara's bed. "Are you excited about tomorrow?" Zara nodded eagerly. "I've never seen a real lake before. Dad said we could go fishing and swimming and hiking and look for frogs and—" "Slow down there, adventure girl," her mom laughed. "We'll have a whole week to do everything." Thundering footsteps on the stairs announced Zeke's arrival. He burst into the room, his dark curly hair sticking up in all directions, looking exactly like Zara, except for the wild hair and the scraped knee showing through. His torn jeans. "Mom, are these my shorts?" he asked, grabbing them from the laundry basket. "No, they're mine," said Zara sarcastically. "I just love wearing boy clothes." "Zara," her mom warned gently. "Sorry," Zara mumbled. Sometimes she forgot that not everyone appreciated her sense of humor. Zeke didn't seem to notice. He was already halfway back to his side of the room, shorts in hand. "Dad says I need to pack my special stuff now. We're leaving super early." Their dad, Marcus Palmer, appeared in the doorway next. He was tall with the same warm brown skin as the twins, and he wore his usual after-work outfit, faded jeans, and his favorite Washington Capitals t-shirt. "Packing patrol has arrived," he announced. "Let me see the progress." Zara proudly displayed her nearly finished suitcase. Everything was perfectly folded and organized by day of the week. "That's my girl," Dad said with a proud smile. He crossed the room to Zeke's side, and his smile quickly turned to a look of horror. "Buddy, is this your idea of packing?" Zeke had stuffed what looked like his entire dresser into his suitcase, socks without matches, shirts balled up, and somehow a baseball glove. "We're going to a lake, Dad. I need options," Zeke explained seriously. Dad sighed, but couldn't hide his smile. "Let's try again, shall we? And maybe leave the baseball crochet glove. Home this time?" As Dad helped Zeke repack, Zara carefully placed Mr. Whiskers into her suitcase. The stuffed cat had been her comfort object since she was a baby. One of his ears had been chewed off during her teething phase, but that just made him more special to her. "Is Mr. Whiskers ready for adventure?" Dad asked. "Definitely," Zara said. "He's never seen a lake either." From across the room came Zeke's voice. "I'm bringing Thunder, too." Thunder was Zeke's wooden train engine, painted blue with red wheels. Their grandfather had carved it for him on their 5th birthday, and Zeke treasured it above all his other toys. "Don't forget Thunder's special box," Mom reminded him. "Already packed it," Zeke said proudly, holding up a small cardboard box, lined with an old washcloth, so he doesn't get scratched. Later that night, after pizza dinner and last-minute packing checks, Zara lay in bed staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling. She could hear Zeke's soft breathing from his bed across the room. "Zeke?" she whispered. "Are you awake?" "Mm-hmm," came the sleepy reply. "What if the lake is scary? What if it's super deep and has monsters?" There was silence for a moment. Then Zeke's voice, more awake now. "Lakes don't have monsters, silly. Just fish and frogs and stuff." "But what if—" "Dad said Lake Willow is special," Zeke interrupted. "He went there when he was little, and he said it's the most beautiful place ever. No monsters." Zara clutched Mr. Whiskers closer. "Promise you won't go exploring without me." "Promise. Twins stick together, remember?" "Twins stick together," she repeated. It was their special saying. Finally reassured, Zara drifted off to sleep, but her dreams were troubled. She found herself wandering through foggy woods, calling for Zeke. He wasn't answering. Strange colored lights danced between the trees. She tried to follow them, thinking they might lead to her brother, but every time she got close, they disappeared. Then, she was standing at the edge of a lake that seemed to go on forever. The water wasn't blue, like in the pictures Dad had shown them. It was dark and glittery, like the night sky had melted into water. Something moved beneath the surface, something watching her. "Zeke?" she called. "Where are you?" The water began to rise, reaching for her feet. Zara woke with a gasp, heart pounding. The room was dark except for the faint glow of stars on the ceiling. "Bad dream?" Zeke's voice came from the darkness. "How did you know?" she whispered. "Twin powers," he said simply. She could hear the smile in his voice. Zara took a deep breath. It was just a dream about the lake. It was scary. "Don't worry," Zeke said, firmly. "I'll be right beside you the whole time. Twins stick together, remember?" "Twins stick together," she repeated, already feeling better. With Mr. Whiskers tucked under her chin and Zeke's reassuring presence across the room, Zara closed her eyes. Tomorrow would be the start of their big adventure, and nothing could possibly go wrong. But when Zara's eyes fluttered open, the next morning, it was to the sound of rain drumming against the window. She frowned, clutching Mr. Whiskers tighter. "Up and at 'em, sunshines!" Dad called, flipping on the bedroom light. "Lake Willow awaits!" Zeke bolted upright, instantly awake, like he always was. "It's raining," he said, pointing at the window. Dad winked. "Not where we're going. Weather app says it'll be sunny at the lake. This is just a goodbye shower from home." The twins hurried to get dressed. Mom had laid out their travel clothes. The night before, comfy pants and matching blue t-shirts with "Adventure Awaits" printed on the front. One of the few matching outfits they still agreed to wear. Downstairs, the smell of pancakes filled the kitchen. Mom stood at the stove flipping perfect golden circles onto plates. "Special breakfast for special explorers," she said, sliding syrup across the table. By the time the family piled into their packed car, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. Zara held Mr. Whiskers on her lap, while Zeke clutched Thunder's special box. Dad programmed the GPS, and they were off. 3 hours and 42 minutes until Lake Willow, Dad announced. At first, the twins played their usual car games, spotting license plates from different states and counting red cars. But as the city disappeared behind them and tall trees started lining the road, they grew quiet, faces pressed against windows. "The trees are getting bigger," Zeke whispered. He was right. These weren't like the skinny trees in their neighborhood park. These were giants, with trunks wider than Dad and branches that reached across the sky like fingers. "We're entering Willow National Forest," Mom explained, reading from her phone. "It covers over 200 square miles, and Lake Willow is right in the heart of it." "Are there bears?" Zara asked nervously. "Just small black bears," Dad said casually. "They're more scared of us than we are of them." Zara wasn't sure about that. She held Mr. Whiskers closer. The road began to wind and curve through the forest. Sometimes it climbed up, so they could see miles of green treetops spread out below. Them! Other times, it dipped down into valleys, where it was so shady it seemed like evening instead of morning. "Almost there," Dad said, after they'd been driving for what felt like forever. "Next stop, the most beautiful lake in the world." Around the next bend, the trees suddenly opened up, and there it was, Lake Willow. The water stretched out before them, so blue it almost hurt to look at it. Tall mountains circled the far shore, their peaks disappearing into puffy white clouds. "Whoa," Zeke breathed. "It's like a picture," Zara agreed. Even Mom and Dad went quiet, just staring at the view. The road curved along the lakeshore, past a few small wooden buildings with signs saying general store and boat rentals. Then Dad turned onto a narrow dirt path that led through more trees. "Our cabin should be right up here," he said, driving slowly over bumpy ground. The cabin appeared between the trees, a cozy-looking wooden building with a wide porch and big windows facing the lake. It wasn't fancy like their house at home, but something about it made Zara feel excited. It looked like a house from a storybook. As Dad parked, the cabin's front door opened. An older man with a bushy white beard and faded blue overalls stepped onto the porch. He raised his hand in greeting. "That must be Mr. Finch," Mom said. "The owner." The family climbed out of the car, stretching after the long drive. The air smelled different here, like pine trees and something sweet Zara couldn't name. "Welcome to Willow Cabin," Mr. Finch called. His voice was deep and rumbly, like he didn't use it much. "You must be the Palmer family." Dad stepped forward to shake his hand. "Yes, I'm Marcus, and this is my wife Bria, and our twins, Zara and Zeke." Mr. Finch leaned down to look at the twins. His eyes were very blue, almost the same color as the lake. "Twins," he said softly. "How special." Something in the way he said it made Zara shiver, even though it wasn't cold. "The lake loves twins," Mr. Finch continued, straightening up. "That's what the old stories say, anyway." Mom and Dad exchanged glances. "What do you mean?" Mom asked. Mr. Finch waved his hand. "Just old local tales. Nothing to worry about." He dug in his overall pocket and pulled out a large iron key. "Here you go. Cabin's all ready for you. I'm just down the road if you need anything." As Mr. Finch walked away, Zeke whispered, "He's weird." "Shh," Mom said, but she looked uneasy too. The inside of the cabin was bigger than it looked from outside. A large living room with worn but comfy-looking furniture opened to a kitchen with wooden countertops. 2 bedrooms led off from the main room, one for Mom and Dad, and one with bunk beds for the twins. "Top bunk!" Zeke yelled, running for the bedroom. "No fair!" Zara called, chasing after him. While their parents unpacked the car, the twins explored every corner of the cabin. They found board games on a shelf, a telescope by the window, and best of all, a back door that led straight to a small beach on the lake. "Can we go look at the water?" Zeke asked when Mom came in with armloads of groceries. "Yes, but stay where? We can see you from the windows," she answered. "And no going in the water without an adult. Promise?" "Promise," they said together. Outside, the twins ran down to the water's edge. Tiny waves lapped against smooth stones in all sorts of colors: red, green, purple, and some that sparkled in the sunlight. "Look at these," Zara exclaimed, picking up a stone that glittered like it had stars inside. When she tilted it, the iridium sparkles seemed to move and change color. Zeke found one too, and then another. Soon their pockets bulged with the special stones. "This place is magic," Zeke said, staring out at the lake. Standing there with the gentle waves almost touching their shoes, the deep blue water stretching to the mountains, and the strange stones cool in their pockets, Zara had to agree. Lake Willow was magic. She just didn't know yet what kind of magic it was. The first full day at Lake Willow dawned bright and clear. Sunlight streamed through the cabin windows, painting golden rectangles on the wooden floor. From the top bunk, Zeke announced he had counted 16 different bird calls already that morning. "You can't possibly know that," Zara said, sliding Mr. Whiskers into her backpack. "Can too," Zeke argued. "I've been awake since forever. And I saw a deer right outside our window." At breakfast, Dad spread a trail map across the table. "I thought we could hike Eagle Ridge today," he said, tracing a path with his finger. "It's not too steep, and the view of the lake from up there is supposed to be amazing." Mom packed sandwiches and water bottles while the twins laced up their hiking boots. Zara triple-checked that she had her sunscreen, bug spray, and, of course, Mr. Whiskers safely tucked in her backpack. Zeke carefully placed Thunder in his special box and slipped it into his own backpack. "Everyone ready for adventure?" Dad asked, striking a dramatic explorer pose that made them all laugh. The trailhead was just a half-mile from their cabin. A wooden sign marked the start of Eagle Ridge Trail, with warnings about staying on the path and watching for wildlife. It says here, the hike is 3 miles round trip, Mom read from a small information board. Should take us about 2 hours with stops. The trail started gently, winding between tall pine trees. Patches of wildflowers dotted the sides of the path, purple and yellow and white. Zara collected a few to press in her vacation journal later. As they climbed higher, Zeke took the lead, charging up the path like a mountain goat. Dad stayed close behind him, while Mom and Zara followed at a slower pace. "Having fun?" Mom asked, taking Zara's hand to help her over a fallen log. "It's so pretty," Zara said, "and quiet, like we're the only people in the whole forest." Mom squeezed her hand. "It does feel that way, doesn't it?" They caught up to Dad and Zeke at a small clearing. Dad was pointing out something in a tree, a large nest with a bird of prey perched beside it. "That's a hawk," he whispered. "See how still it's sitting? It's watching for mice or rabbits down below." The hawk turned its head, fixing them with a piercing yellow stare. Zara felt like it was looking right through her. Then, with a sudden flap of wings, it launched into the air and disappeared over the treetops. "So cool," Zeke breathed. They continued climbing. The trees thinned out as they got higher, giving glimpses of the lake below, flashes of brilliant blue between green branches. "Almost there," Dad, encouraged as they reached a steeper section. "The viewpoint is just ahead." The trail curved around a large boulder, and suddenly they were standing on an open ridge. Lake Willow spread out below them, a perfect blue oval cradled by mountains. From this height, they could see tiny boats, dotting the water like toys, and the far shore where no roads or cabins disturbed the wilderness. "It's the prettiest thing I've ever seen," Zara said. They found a flat rock to sit on and unpacked lunch. The sandwiches tasted better up here, somehow, with the breeze cooling their faces and the magnificent view before them. Zeke pulled out Thunder to show him the view. "He's never been this high up before," he explained seriously. Zara did the same with Mr. Whiskers, propping him up against her water bottle so he could see the lake. The family lingered, taking photos and pointing out shapes in the clouds that drifted by. None of them was in a hurry to leave the peaceful spot. But as they were packing up to head back down, Zara noticed something strange. A thin, white mist was creeping across the lake's surface, even though the day was warm and sunny. "Look," she said, pointing. "Is that fog?" They all watched as the wispy tendrils spread, joining together until nearly half the lake was covered in a blanket of white. "That's odd," Dad said, frowning. "Weather report didn't mention fog." "It's moving fast," Mom added. She was right. The fog was rolling toward the shoreline nearest their ridge, moving much faster than normal fog should. It seemed almost purposeful. "We should head back," Dad decided. "Sometimes weather changes quickly in mountain areas." They hurried to pack the remaining lunch items. By the time they started down the trail, the fog had reached the shore and was beginning to creep up the lower slopes. "It's following us," Zeke whispered to Zara. "Don't be silly," she replied, but she walked faster. The descent was trickier than the climb. Loose rocks slid under their feet, and tree roots made hidden obstacles on the path. To make matters worse, the strange fog continued to rise, swallowing the trees below. "Stay close together," Dad called over his shoulder. They were about halfway down when the fog enveloped them. 1 minute, they could see the trail ahead. The next, they were surrounded by swirling white. Zara could barely see her hand in front of her face. "Everybody stop," Dad ordered. "Bria, hold Zara's hand. I've got Zeke. We'll walk very slowly." Mom's warm fingers closed around Zara's. With her other hand, Zara clutched the strap of her backpack where Mr. Whiskers rode. "The trail goes this way," Dad said, his voice sounding muffled in the thick air. They moved cautiously. Zara could hear Zeke's footsteps and Dad's occasional warnings about obstacles. But something felt wrong. The fog wasn't like normal fog. It seemed to whisper as it swirled around them, and it sparkled in places, like it had tiny lights embedded in it. "Dad?" Zeke's voice sounded small and far away. "I think we're going the wrong way." "Just follow me, buddy," Dad answered. "I can still see the trail markers." They trudged on. The fog grew thicker, pressing against them like a living thing. Zara felt Mom's grip tighten on her hand. Then came a sound, a high, tinkling noise, like tiny bells. At the same moment, Zara felt something tugging at her other arm, pulling her away from Mom. "Mom!" she gasped. "I'm right here, honey," Mom answered, but her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The tugging grew stronger. Zara tried to hold on to Mom's hand, but her fingers were slipping. "Mom!" she cried as their hands separated. "Zeke! Dad!" But only the fog answered, wrapping around her like a cocoon, sparkling and whispering. Zara stumbled forward, trying to find the path, trying to find her family. The tinkling sound grew louder. The fog parted briefly, and Zara saw a figure, ahead. Zeke! She ran toward him. "Zeke, wait!" she called. He turned, but as she got closer, she realized something was wrong. This boy looked like Zeke, but also not like him. The fog closed in again before she could be sure. When it cleared a moment later, she was alone. Completely alone. "Zara! Zeke!" Bria Palmer's scream tore through the fog like a knife. One moment, she had been holding Zara's hand tightly. The VB next, her fingers were grasping at empty air. The fog had thickened so suddenly, becoming an impenetrable wall of white. "Marcus, do you have the kids?" Panic made her voice crack. "I have Zeke," Marcus started, then stopped. "Wait, where did he go? He was right here." The parents fumbled through the mist, arms outstretched, calling their children's names. But their voices seemed swallowed by the strange fog, muffled to whispers after just a few feet. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the fog began to dissolve. Within minutes, the air cleared completely, revealing the forest path, and no sign of either twin. "This isn't possible," Marcus said, spinning in a circle, scanning the trees. "They were right with us." Bria ran up and down the trail, checking, behind every tree and boulder. "Zara! Zeke! This isn't funny. Come out right now." Only bird calls answered her. "I'm calling for help," Marcus said, pulling out his phone. His hands shook as he dialed 911. 30 minutes later, 2 park rangers arrived on ATVs. Ranger Wilson, a tall woman with gray hair tucked under her uniform hat, took charge immediately. "When exactly did you last see your children?" she asked, notebook in hand. Bria clutched Marcus's arm, her face pale. "In the fog. I was holding Zara's hand, and Marcus had Zeke. But then they were gone. Like they vanished into thin air," Marcus added, his voice hollow. The second ranger, A younger man named Chen spoke into his radio, requesting additional personnel and search dogs. "We're going to find them," Ranger Wilson promised. Children rarely go far when they're lost. They probably got disoriented in the fog and wandered off the trail. But her reassuring words couldn't mask the concerned glance she exchanged with her partner. By evening, the search party had grown to 20 rangers and volunteers. They combed the forest in a grid pattern, calling the twins names. Search dogs sniffed items from the children's backpacks, which the parents had found abandoned on the trail. Bria sat on a fallen log, clutching Mr. Whiskers and Thunder. The toys had been in the discarded backpacks, the only traces left of Zara and Zeke. "Why would they take off their backpacks?" she whispered, stroking the one-eared cat with trembling fingers. Zara would never leave Mr. Whiskers behind. Never. As darkness fell, portable floodlights were set up, casting harsh shadows through the trees. The searchers continued, but found nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, no scraps of clothing. It was as if the twins had simply evaporated. Treatways. Officials insisted that Bria and Marcus return to the cabin for rest, leaving rangers to continue the search overnight. But rest was impossible. They sat at the kitchen table, jumping at every sound, hoping each moment would bring a knock at the door with news of their children. Morning brought no relief. The search expanded, with helicopters now sweeping the area from above. News vans appeared on the main road, and reporters set up cameras at the trail entrance. Officer Sarah Jameson arrived from the county sheriff's department, introducing herself as the lead investigator. With sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, she immediately took control of the situation. "I need to understand exactly what happened yesterday," she told the parents. "Every detail. No matter how small or strange it might seem." They sat on the cabin porch, cups of untouched coffee growing cold, as Marcus and Bria recounted the hike, the view from Eagle Ridge, and the sudden appearance of the fog. "It wasn't normal fog," Bria insisted. "It moved too fast and it seemed alive somehow." Officer Jameson raised an eyebrow but noted it without comment. "And the children's backpacks were found on the trail. But they weren't wearing them when they disappeared," she clarified. "No," Marcus said. "The backpacks were just sitting there, with their toys inside." The officer frowned. "That is odd. Most children hold on to comfort objects when they're scared." A commotion at the edge of the property drew their attention. A search dog was pulling its handler toward the lake, barking excitedly. They rushed down to the shore, hope flaring. The dog circled near the water's edge, nose to the ground, then stopped abruptly at the wet sand line where tiny waves lapped. "What happened? Did he lose the scent?" Bria asked anxiously. The dog handler looked troubled. "No, ma'am. According to Tracker here, the scent goes right to the water and stops." "That's impossible," Officer Jameson said. "Unless—" She didn't finish the thought, but the implication hung in the air. Unless the twins had gone into the lake. Divers were called in immediately. They searched the shallows near the cabin, then moved to deeper water. Hours passed with no results. When the divers finally emerged. Their report was puzzling rather than reassuring. "There's no sign of anyone having been in that water recently," the lead diver told Officer Jameson. "No disturbance of the lake bottom, no caught clothing, nothing." "Then why did the dog track them to the water?" Marcus demanded. No one had an answer. Days blurred together. The search continued, expanding to cover 5 miles in every direction from the point of disappearance. Volunteers from nearby towns joined the effort, Flyers with the twins' photos appeared in shop windows and on bulletin boards across 3 counties. On the 4th night, Bria was sifting through the twins' backpacks again, looking for any clue they might have missed. As she emptied Zara's pack, something tumbled out of a side pocket. Several of the glittering stones the children had collected from the beach. "Marcus, look at these," she said, laying them on the table. He picked one up, turning it under the light. "They're just pretty rocks the kids found." "But look how they sparkle. It's not normal." Bria arranged the stones in a circle. "And remember what Mr. Finch said about the lake-loving twins?" Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. "Bria, please, I can't think about local superstitions right now." Officer Jameson arrived the next morning with news that sent a fresh wave of dread through the parents. "We've completed the search of the immediate area," she said gently. "We're going to scale back the ground operations and focus on investigating other possibilities." "What other possibilities?" Bria asked, her voice rising. "They're out there somewhere. They have to be." "Mrs. Palmer, we have to consider that this might not be a simple case of lost children. The circumstances are unusual." "You think someone took them?" Marcus said flatly. Officer Jameson nodded. "It's a possibility we need to explore. The complete lack of physical evidence in the forest is concerning. Most lost children leave. Some traces, footprints, torn clothing, something." "But who would—" Bria began, then stopped as a new, horrible thought occurred to her. "Mr. Finch. He said strange things about twins, and he knows these woods better than anyone." "We've already interviewed Mr. Finch," Officer Jameson assured them. "He has a solid alibi. He was in town all day, seen by multiple witnesses." The parents insisted on staying at the cabin, refusing to leave without their children. The rental period ended, but Mr. Finch told them to stay as long as needed, no charge. He seemed genuinely distressed by the disappearance. As the first week drew to a close, the national news picked up the story. "Twin children vanish in Willow Forest" became the headline on morning shows. Experts debated theories ranging from animal attacks to kidnapping. But no one could explain how 2 children could disappear in broad daylight, leaving no trace, except backpacks containing the toys they would never willingly abandon. As the ETBC search entered its 2nd week, Bria and Marcus fell into a grim routine. Each morning, they met with Officer Jameson for updates. Each afternoon, they joined whatever search parties were still combing the forest. Each evening, they returned to the cabin, hollow-eyed and silent. The media circus gradually packed up and left as newer tragedies demanded attention. The volunteer search parties dwindled. Even Officer Jameson's visits became less frequent as the case stalled. But still, the parents stayed. "We need supplies," Marcus said one morning, staring at their nearly empty refrigerator. "I'll drive into town." Willow Creek was the nearest town, a small cluster of buildings serving the lakes, summer tourists, and the scattered year-round residents of the forest. Its main street consisted of a general store, a diner, a gas station, and a few other essential businesses. Marcus parked in front of the general store, noticing the twins' missing posters still taped in the window. The bell jingled as he entered, and the few customers inside fell suddenly silent, turning to stare. An older man behind the counter cleared his throat. "Help you, sir?" "Just need some groceries," Marcus said, grabbing a basket. As he moved through the aisles, the whispers started. Not bothering to keep their voices down, 2 women by the canned goods spoke while watching him from the corner of their eyes. "That's the father of those missing twins," one said. "Terrible business," the other replied. But they should have known better than to bring twins here, especially during Swallow Moon. Marcus froze, a box of cereal halfway to his basket. Excuse me? What did you say about twins? The women looked startled, then embarrassed. The older one, her gray hair pulled into a tight bun, straightened her shoulders. Nothing that would help you now, I'm afraid. Please, Marcus said, setting down his basket. My children are missing. If you know something, anything. The women exchanged glances. The younger one shook her head slightly, but the older woman sighed. It's just local talk is all. There's stories about the lake. Old stories. What kind of stories? Marcus pressed. That's enough, Dottie, the store owner called from the counter. Don't fill his head with nonsense. The woman named Dottie pressed her lips together, then whispered, The diner. May's working. Today. She knows more than anyone. Heart-pounding, Marcus abandoned his shopping and headed straight to the Willow Creek Diner. It was nearly empty, just a couple of truckers at the counter and a waitress wiping down tables. Her name tag read, May. She was tiny and ancient, with skin like crumpled paper and bright, alert eyes. When she approached his table, her gaze was knowing. Coffee? She asked. Information, Marcus replied, about twins and the lake. May glanced around, then slid into the booth across from him. You're that Palmer fellow, with the missing children. Yes, please, if you know anything that could help. Not here, she interrupted. Too many ears. She scribbled something on her order pad and slid it across to him. My place, after my shift, 7 o'clock. Marcus returned to the cabin with this news, finding Bria sitting on the porch, staring at the lake. We should tell Officer Jameson, she said after he explained. And say what? That we're meeting an old waitress who might know some local legends? Marcus shook his head. Jameson's looking for evidence, not stories. At 7, they parked outside a small blue cottage on the edge of town. May answered their knock immediately, as if she'd been waiting by the door. Come in, quick, she said, ushering them inside. The cottage was cluttered but clean, filled with plants and old books. May directed them to a worn sofa and sat opposite in a rocking chair. I heard about your twins the moment they went missing, she said without preamble. History, repeating, I thought. What history? Bria asked. May's gnarled fingers twisted in her lap. I had a twin sister once, Nora. We were 8 years old, same as your two. She pointed to a faded photograph on the wall. 2 identical little girls in matching dresses. What happened to her? Marcus asked, though something in him already knew. We were picking blackberries by the lake. Summer of 1963. Fog came rolling in, thick as sheep's wool. 1 minute Nora was right beside me. The next, May shook her head. Gone. Bria leaned forward. Just like our children. The whole town searched. Days turned to weeks. People started saying what they always say. Animal attack. Drowning. But I knew. May's voice hardened. I could feel her. Still alive. Somewhere else. Where? Marcus whispered. The in-between place. That's what my grandmother called it. She said the lake doesn't always keep what it takes. What does that mean? Bria demanded. 3 weeks after Nora vanished, a hunter found her doll. Her favorite. Doll she took everywhere, sitting perfect as you please on a rock 20 miles from where she disappeared. Marcus and Bria exchanged shocked glances. And Nora? Came back 2 days later, walking out of the woods like she'd just been for a stroll. No dirt, no scratches, not even hungry. May's eyes grew distant. But different. Quieter. Said she couldn't remember where she'd been, just knew it was bright and sparkly, and time felt funny there. She came back, Bria repeated, hope flaring in her voice. Your sister came back. May nodded slowly. But not everyone does. There's been others over the years. Most were single children, and they never returned. But twins. She leaned forward. The lake has special interest in twins. That's why I need to tell you. Watch for signs. What signs? Marcus asked. The toys, May said. If their toys appear somewhere, it means they're trying to find their way. Back. It's a door cracking open. This is crazy, Marcus muttered, but Bria clutched his arm. The stones, she said. The ones the twins collected. They're part of this. Somehow, aren't they? May nodded. The lake's pebbles. Some say they're the lake's eyes, or maybe its voice. As they left May's cottage, the old woman pressed something into Bria's hand, a small cloth pouch. Nora's stones, she explained. She kept them all these years, said they helped her remember, even when she couldn't explain what she was remembering. Driving back to the cabin in silence, neither parent knew what to believe. But that night, Bria placed the glittering stones the twins had collected in a circle on the porch railing, facing the lake. Just in case, she whispered to the dark water. And somewhere miles away, a hiker zipped his tent closed, unaware of what he would find in the morning. A one-eared stuffed cat sitting on a boulder, perfectly dry and clean, as if it had been carefully placed there by invisible hands. Dawn broke with a phone call that jerked Bria and Marcus from their fitful sleep. Mr. Palmer? This is Officer Jameson. Something's been found. I'm on my way to pick you up. Marcus fumbled with the phone, still half asleep. Found? What? The children? Not exactly, but it might be related. I'll be there in 20 minutes. They were ready in 10, standing on the porch, hearts hammering. When Officer Jameson's police cruiser pulled up, they practically ran to meet it. What is it? Bria demanded, climbing into the back seat. Officer Jameson's face was carefully neutral. A hiker reported finding an unusual item at his campsite this morning. He saw the missing posters in town and thought it might be connected. What item? Marcus pressed. A stuffed animal, a cat with one ear. Bria gasped. Mr. Whiskers, where? Where was he found? At Copper Creek, about 30 miles north of here. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. That's impossible. We've had the toys with us the whole time. Then realization struck. Unless it's a sign, Bria whispered, remembering May's words. Officer Jameson glanced at them in the rearview mirror. A sign? Never mind, Marcus said quickly. Let's just see what was found. The drive seemed endless. They wound through forest roads, climbing higher into the mountains, finally turning onto a narrow dirt track. The hiker is still at his campsite, Officer Jameson explained as they parked. He agreed to wait for us. His name is Peter Vaughn, a wildlife photographer from Seattle. A tall man with a red beard waved to them from beside a small tent, pitched near a burbling stream. On a flat rock nearby sat a familiar one-eared stuffed cat. Mr. Whiskers! Bria cried, running forward. Ma'am, please don't touch it yet, Officer Jameson called. We need to document this properly. The photographer looked bewildered. I just found it sitting there when I woke up. At first, I thought someone was playing a prank, but there's no one else around for miles. You're sure it wasn't there yesterday? Officer Jameson asked. Positive. I was photographing birds from that very rock all evening. While Officer Jameson questioned the hiker and took photos, Bria and Marcus stared at the stuffed cat in disbelief. "It's definitely Mr. Whiskers," Bria whispered. "But how? How did he get here?" Marcus squeezed her hand. "Remember what May said? About the toys being a sign they're trying to come back?" Officer Jameson overheard. "Who's May? What sign?" Marcus hesitated, then decided they had nothing to lose. "An elderly woman in town," she said. "Her twin sister disappeared at the lake 60 years ago, just like our children." He explained about May's story, the toys appearing, and her sister's eventual return. Officer Jameson's professional composure slipped for the first time. "And you're just mentioning this now? Would you have believed us?" Bria challenged. "Would you have included supernatural lake kidnapping in your report?" The officer frowned. "I deal in evidence, Mrs. Palmer, and right now, the evidence is puzzling. I'll admit." She gestured to Mr. Whiskers. "This toy was supposedly in your possession at the cabin, yet here it is, 30 miles away. No footprints around it, no signs of how it got here." "It's a message," Bria insisted, "from Zara. She's telling us she's alive." "Or someone wants you to think that," Officer Jameson countered gently. After bagging the stuffed cat as evidence, they returned to the cabin. Officer Jameson promised to run tests, though what tests could explain a toy teleporting 30 miles, none of them knew. Alone again, Marcus retrieved the real Mr. Whiskers from Zara's backpack. He and Bria stared at it in silence. "There are 2 of them now," Bria finally said. "How is that possible?" Before Marcus could answer, a knock at the door startled them. Mr. Finch stood on the porch, hat in hand, looking uncomfortable. "Heard. There was a development," he said. "Word travels fast around here." "The stuffed cat," Marcus confirmed. "You know something about this, don't you?" Mr. Finch sighed heavily. "May I come in? It's time we had a proper talk." They sat at the kitchen table, Mr. Whiskers placed in the center like an exhibit. "I should have said more when you arrived," Mr. Finch began. "But folks around here, we don't like to scare the tourists with old stories. We're well past being scared of stories," Bria said sharply. Mr. Finch nodded. "Fair enough. I see you've met May." "You know her?" Marcus asked. "Everyone knows May and what happened to her sister. It wasn't the first time, though. My own grandfather wrote about similar disappearances in his journals. Always the same pattern. The fog comes suddenly. Someone vanishes, and weeks later, their belongings start showing up, miles from where they disappeared. And the people? Do they come back like May's sister did?" Bria asked urgently. Mr. Finch hesitated. "Sometimes. Not always. And, when they do, they're changed somehow. Nothing obvious, just different." "The in-between place," Marcus murmured. "What is it? Where is it?" "My grandfather called it the space between spaces. Not quite our world, not quite somewhere else." Mr. Finch traced a pattern on the tablecloth. He believed the lake is a doorway of sorts, and sometimes that door opens, especially during what locals call the swallow moon. The phase of the moon when the twins disappeared, Bria realized. But why twins? Why our children? Twins have a special energy about them, a connection that's stronger than normal. My grandfather thought that connection somehow resonates with the doorway, makes it easier to cross over. Officer Jameson called that evening. Her voice was strained. We've confirmed the stuffed cat is identical to the one you have. Same fabric, same missing ear, even the same factory tag. Inside. It's not a copy. It's somehow a duplicate. What does that mean for the investigation? Marcus asked. Honestly? I don't know. This goes beyond normal police work. But I'm not giving up. She paused. I've called in a specialist from the FBI, someone who's dealt with unusual cases before. 3 days later, the impossible happened again. A family fishing at the southern end of the lake, nearly 40 miles from where Mr. Whiskers had been found, discovered a small wooden train engine caught in their net. Thunder, Zeke's beloved toy, perfectly preserved despite being pulled from underwater. Officer Jameson brought it to the cabin immediately. They placed it beside the original Thunder that had been in Zeke's backpack. Identical, she confirmed. Just like the cat. They're trying to find their way back, Bria said, touching the two identical toys with trembling fingers. But they need help. That night, Bria arranged the glittering stones in a more complex pattern on the porch, adding those from May's pouch. Marcus watched, no longer skeptical. Do you think it's working? He asked. I don't know, but May said the stones are the lake's voice. Maybe if we speak its language. From the darkness beyond the porch, they heard a soft splashing from the lake. Both rushed to the railing. For a brief moment, the water near the shore glowed with an unearthly blue light, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then it was gone, leaving them to wonder if they had imagined it. But deep in the forest, miles from any hiking trail, a third object appeared that night. A child's hair ribbon tied around a tree branch, gently swaying in the breeze, though there was no wind. The door was beginning to open wider. News of the second toy's discovery spread through the small community like wildfire. The mysterious circumstances: a wooden train engine found perfectly preserved in fishing nets, 40 miles south of where the stuffed cat had appeared 30 miles north, captured public imagination in a way the initial disappearance had not. By morning, the media had returned in full force. News vans lined the narrow road leading to the lake, reporters clutching microphones and jostling for position outside the police station. This is Kelly Chen reporting live from Willow Creek, where the bizarre case of the missing Palmer twins has taken an unexpected turn. One reporter announced to a camera. 2 toys belonging to the children have now been found miles apart, weeks after their disappearance, both in pristine condition despite exposure to the elements. Inside the cabin, Marcus and Bria watched the coverage with mixed emotions. At least people are paying attention again, Marcus said. Maybe someone will come forward. With information, Officer Jameson arrived, looking harried from dealing with the media circus. The FBI specialist she'd mentioned followed her, a tall, thin woman with short gray hair and piercing eyes. Mr. and Mrs. Palmer, this is Special Agent Diana Reed. She specializes in unusual cases. Agent Reed shook their hands with a firm grip. I understand you've had contact with a local resident who claims her sister experienced a similar disappearance decades ago? May Blackwood, Bria confirmed. She says, I'd prefer to hear it directly from her, Agent Reed interrupted. And I'd like to see these stones you've been arranging and the exact spot where the children vanished. Agent Reed's methodical approach was both reassuring and frustrating. She interviewed May for hours, read Mr. Finch's grandfather's journals, and hiked the Eagle Ridge Trail to the spot where the fog had appeared. She examined the duplicate toys with scientific instruments and took samples of the glittering stones for analysis. Through it all, she revealed nothing of her own thoughts. "Does she believe us?" Bria whispered to Marcus as they watched Agent Reed photographing their stone arrangement on the porch. "Does she think there's really an in-between place?" "I don't know," Marcus replied, "but at least she's not dismissing it outright." That afternoon, they gathered in the cabin's living room. The Palmers, Officer Jameson, Agent Reed, May, and Mr. Finch. Agent Reed stood by the fireplace, her face unreadable. "Based on my preliminary investigation," she began, "I believe we're dealing with a genuine anomaly." Officer Jameson blinked in surprise. "You mean you think there's something supernatural happening here?" "I don't use that term," Agent Reed replied crisply. "I prefer unexplained phenomenon. But yes, the evidence suggests something beyond our current scientific understanding." She pulled out a tablet and showed them images of the toys. "These are molecular scans of both sets of toys. They are identical down to the atomic level, which is theoretically impossible. No two objects, even manufactured ones, should have precisely the same atomic structure." "So what does that mean?" Marcus asked. "It means," Agent Reed said carefully, "that these may not be duplicates at all, but the same objects existing simultaneously in different states." May nodded as if this confirmed something she already knew. "Time works differently in the in-between place. My sister said a day there felt like weeks here." "And where exactly is there?" Agent Reed asked. May struggled to explain. "It's like a layer beneath our world, or maybe beside it. A place you can slip into when the boundaries get thin." "And these stones are connected to this place?" Agent Reed held up one of the glittering rocks. "They belong to both worlds," May said. "That's why they change when the light hits them. You're seeing them shift between here and there." Agent Reed made notes without comment. Then she turned to the parents. "I'd like to try something tonight. A more structured arrangement of these stones based on patterns I've observed in similar cases. If there is a door, as you put it, perhaps we can encourage it to open further." Hope flared in Bria's chest. "You think we can bring them back?" "I make no promises," Agent Reed cautioned, "but there are documented instances of missing persons returning under equally unusual circumstances." As dusk approached, they gathered on the beach. Agent Reed directed them to place the stones in a complex spiral pattern at the water's edge. May added her sister's stones to the arrangement, while Mr. Finch brought additional ones he'd collected over the years. "Now what?" Marcus asked when they finished. "We wait," Agent Reed replied, setting up sensors and cameras around the spiral. Hours passed. The moon rose, nearly full, casting silver light across the lake's surface. Nothing happened. Then, just as midnight approached, a mist began to form over the water. Not like the heavy fog from the day of the disappearance, but a thin, shimmering veil that seemed to dance with tiny points of light. "It's happening," May whispered, her aged face lit with an almost childlike wonder. The stones in the spiral began to glow, pulsing in rhythm like a heartbeat. The mist over the lake swirled faster, forming a funnel shape that reached toward the shore. Agent Reed's instruments beeped frantically. "I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations," she said, voice tight with excitement. "Something is definitely happening." A high, clear sound like distant wind chimes filled the air. The funnel of mist touched the spiral of stones, and for a brief moment, The air between them seemed to tear, revealing a glimpse of somewhere else, a place filled with shifting light and impossible colors. "Zara! Zeke!" Bria called, stepping forward instinctively. Agent Reed grabbed her arm. "Don't! It's not stable." The tear in the air flickered, then sealed itself. The mist dissipated, and the stones stopped glowing, leaving them all staring at the ordinary-looking lake. "What happened?" Marcus demanded. "We almost had it." "Almost," Agent Reed agreed. "The phenomenon appears to require more energy than we generated. Or perhaps the timing wasn't right." May was nodding. "The full swallow moon. That's when the EE door opens widest. 2 more nights." The next morning brought unexpected news. A local girl walking her dog had found a hair ribbon tied around a tree branch deep in the forest, miles from any trail. The blue ribbon matched the one Zara had been wearing the day she vanished. More shocking still, when they tested it, it proved to be yet another impossibility, identical to a ribbon still tucked in Zara's backpack at the cabin. 3 signs. "Now," May said when she heard. "The cat, the train, the ribbon. The children are finding the thin spots between worlds." The story exploded nationally. Physicists baffled by duplicate objects in missing twins case. Read one headline: FBI Paranormal Division investigates Lake Willow mystery, claimed another, though Agent Reed pointedly denied the existence of any such division. Researchers and self-proclaimed psychics descended on Willow Creek, along with curious tourists, hoping to catch a glimpse of the supernatural. Officer Jameson had to establish a perimeter around the cabin to keep onlookers away. "This is getting out of hand," she told the Palmers, "but I have to admit, I've never seen anything like it in Baduit Pointers, my 20 years of police work." Agent Reed spent the day analyzing data and consulting remotely with scientists. That evening, she presented her findings to the parents. "Based on the pattern of discoveries, I believe there may be more objects appearing, creating a kind of trail." "A trail to what?" Bria asked. "To where the children might reappear," Agent Reed replied cautiously. "If they can send objects through, there's reason to hope they might find a way through themselves." "On the full moon," Marcus said. "The swallow moon." Agent Reed nodded. "That would be consistent with the increased energy readings we detected last night." As if to confirm their theory, early the next morning a hiker found Zeke's shoelace knotted around a branch near a small mountain stream. Hours later, a park ranger discovered one of Zara's hair clips resting on a rock formation 5 miles in another direction. The trail was becoming clearer, a circle of discovered items surrounding Lake Willow, each one a piece of the twins somehow transported across the boundary between worlds. That night, as Bria arranged their growing collection of duplicated items on the kitchen table, she noticed something they had missed. When placed in the order they were found, the objects formed a pattern that matched the constellation visible above the lake on the night the twins disappeared. "It's a map," she breathed. "They're not just sending signs, they're sending directions." And somewhere in the in-between place, Zara and Zeke were leaving another sign, the most important one yet. Dawn broke with a heavy stillness over Lake Willow. The influx of media and curiosity seekers had transformed the once peaceful shoreline into something resembling a carnival. News crews set up equipment. Psychics offered their services to distraught tourists, and vendors sold T-shirts with Lake Willow Mystery emblazoned across the front. Disgusted by the spectacle, Bria retreated to the cabin porch, where May sat waiting in a rocking chair. The elderly woman looked more frail than usual, her eyes shadowed with lack of sleep. They don't understand, May said, watching the distant crowd through narrowed eyes. They think it's entertainment. Bria sat beside her. You've never told us the whole story, have you? About your sister. May's hands stilled in her lap. No, some things are hard to speak of, even after all these years. Please, Bria urged. We need to know everything if we're going to bring Zara and Zeke back. May was quiet for so long that Bria thought she wouldn't answer. Then the old woman sighed, a sound like dry leaves rustling. I was 8 years old when it happened, same age as your twins. It was 1963, and our family was staying at my uncle's cabin for the summer, not far from here, though it's long gone now. May's voice took on a dreamy quality, as if she were seeing not the lake before them, but the one from her childhood. Nora and I were identical, same brown hair, same blue eyes, same dimple on the right cheek. We even had the same laugh. Our mother dressed us alike, and we played along, sometimes switching places to confuse our teachers. She smiled faintly at the memory. That day, we were picking blackberries along the shore. I remember the juice staining our fingers purple. We each had a little pail that was barely half full because we ate more than we saved. Her smile faded. The fog came from nowhere. 1 minute, sunshine, and birdsong. The next, white so thick, I couldn't see my hand before my face. I called for Nora, and at first, she answered, I'm here, May. But her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, like the fog itself was speaking. May's fingers twisted. In her lap, I stumbled around, calling and calling, but the answers grew fainter. Then they stopped altogether. When the fog lifted, I was alone. Bria reached over and covered May's knotted hands with her own. Just like our children. May nodded. The search went on for weeks. My parents aged years in those days. My mother's hair turned gray, and my father's laugh disappeared forever. But Nora came back, Bria prompted gently. Yes, 23 days after she vanished. But first, there was the doll. May pulled a small photograph from her pocket and handed it to Bria. It showed a worn porcelain doll with painted eyes and a faded blue dress. Miss Lily was Nora's favorite. She took her everywhere, talked to her like she was real. When Nora disappeared, Miss Lily disappeared too. She'd been holding her when the fog came. And it reappeared, like the twins' toys, Bria said. A hunter found her, sitting on a rock by Cooper Stream, 20 miles from the lake. Perfectly clean, not a speck of dirt, though it had rained twice that week. May took back the photograph, stroking it with one finger. The police thought it was some kind of sick prank, but my grandmother knew better. Your grandmother? She was from the old country, knew things others had forgotten. When she heard about the doll, she told my parents Nora was finding her way back. May's eyes grew distant again. 2 days later, my father was splitting wood behind the cabin when he looked up and saw Nora walking out of the trees, just walking casual as could be, in the same blue dress she'd been wearing when she vanished. Not a wrinkle or stain on it. Her hair was neatly combed, and she was humming a tune no one recognized. Was she all right? Bria asked hesitantly. She seemed to be. Wasn't hungry or thirsty. Didn't look like she'd spent 3 weeks lost in the woods. But she couldn't, or wouldn't, tell us where she'd been. Just said it was the glitter place, where time felt funny. May leaned closer to Bria, her voice dropping to a near whisper. But she was different. Little things at first. Foods she used to love, she wouldn't touch. Songs she'd known by heart, she couldn't remember. And sometimes I'd catch her staring at nothing, head tilted, like she was listening to something only she could hear. A chill ran down Bria's spine. What do you think happened to her? My grandmother had a theory. She said some places in the world are thin, where the boundary between here and elsewhere can be crossed under the right circumstances. She believed Nora had slipped through such a place and spent those missing weeks somewhere else. The Mamd, in-between place, Bria murmured. Yes, and the strangest part? The stones. May pulled a glittering pebble from her pocket. One, of the same kind the twins had collected. Nora's pockets were full of these when she returned. And for years after, she would arrange them in patterns when she thought no one was watching. Like I've been doing, Bria realized. Exactly like that. She said they helped her remember, though she could never explain what she was trying to remember. It was like the memories were just out of reach. What happened to Nora? Marcus asked, stepping onto the porch. He had been listening from the doorway. May's face clouded. She lived a quiet life, never married, kept to herself mostly. Sometimes she'd disappear for days without explanation, always coming back with no memory of where she'd been. She died 5 years ago. She turned to face them both directly. Before she died, she told me something. The only clear thing she ever said about her experience. She said, "It wasn't me they wanted, May. It was both of us. But they only got one." Marcus and Bria exchanged alarmed glances. "What does that mean?" Bria asked. "Who are they?" "I don't know for certain," May admitted. "But my grandmother said the in-between place is home to beings. Not quite like us. They're drawn to twins because twins already exist in two places at once, in a way. Two bodies, one connection. And our children? These beings have them?" Marcus's voice was strained. "I believe so. But there's hope." May stood up slowly, her aged joints protesting. "Nora left something with me before she died. Said I'd know when to use it." From her large handbag, May withdrew a small wooden box, its surface carved with intricate spirals. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, lay a magnifying glass with a silver handle. This belonged to my grandmother. She called it her seeing eye, said it reveals what's hidden. May handed it to Bria. "Look at the stones through this. Really, look." Bria held the magnifying glass over one of the glittering pebbles. At first, she saw nothing unusual. Then, as the light shifted, she gasped. Tiny symbols appeared on the stone's surface, delicate swirls and dots that seemed to move and change as she watched. "What is it?" Marcus asked, leaning close. "Writing," Bria breathed. "Or symbols of some kind." "The lake's language," May confirmed. "That's what my grandmother called it. Nora could read it, somehow. I think your children can too now. They're trying to tell us something through these stones." The idea that Zara and Zeke might be communicating with them, however strangely, sent a surge of hope through Bria. She examined stone after stone, seeing different symbols on each. But what do they mean? How do we translate them? May smiled. Sadly. That's the part I don't know. Nora never explained the meanings, and my grandmother's knowledge died with her. Perhaps I can help with that, said a new voice. They turned to find Mr. Finch standing at the bottom of the porch steps, a large, leather-bound book in his hands. My grandfather's complete journals, he explained. I've been searching through the family attic. There's an entire section on the stone language. As Mr. Finch joined them on the porch, none of them noticed the lake's surface rippling in an unnatural pattern, nor the brief flash of two small faces reflected in the water, faces watching. The cabin with patient, glittering eyes. Mr. Finch set the leather-bound journal on the porch table with reverence. Its pages were yellowed with age, the handwriting inside cramped but legible. My grandfather, Edward Finch, was what you might call an amateur folklorist, he explained, carefully turning the brittle pages. He collected local stories, particularly ones the indigenous people told about the lake. Most folks thought he was eccentric, but he was meticulous in his recordings. He stopped at a page filled with drawings of symbols, the same kinds of markings Bria had seen on the stones through the magnifying glass. Here, he called it the Voice of the Waters. According to his notes, the old tribes believed Lake Willow was a living entity that occasionally spoke through these markings. Agent Reed, who had been silently observing from the doorway, stepped forward to examine the journal. These symbols are consistent with what we're seeing on the stones, she confirmed. Is there a translation key? Mr. Finch flipped to the ET, next page, revealing columns of symbols matched with English words. It's incomplete, he admitted. Grandfather spent years trying to decipher them. He believed they weren't just a language, but a kind of map. A map to where? Marcus asked. To the in-between place, or more specifically, to the doorways between our world and theirs. Bria was already gathering the stones they had collected, spreading them on the table. We need to translate what these say. Maybe the twins are telling us how to bring them back. For the next several hours, they worked methodically, with May providing insights from her sister's experiences, Mr. Finch translating symbols from his grandfather's journal, and Agent Reed documenting everything with scientific precision. They slowly began to make sense of the stone's message. This one, Mr. Finch said, pointing to a stone with a spiral pattern, represents the moon cycle. And this symbol here means doorway or passage. And this one, May added, holding up another stone, Nora used to call the home finder. It's about returning to your own place. Stone by stone, a message emerged. When moon touches water, circle of stone speaks, pathway opens, return journey begins. It's instructions, Bria realized, for how to open the doorway when the swallow moon is full. Which is tomorrow. Night, Marcus added. Agent Reed made notes in her tablet. The pattern these objects have been appearing in, it forms a circle around the lake, with specific points that align with the lunar position at different times. Like a clock, Mr. Finch suggested. Or a combination lock, Agent Reed countered. Each discovery has happened at a precise location that corresponds to the moon's position in the sky at that moment. She pulled up a map on her tablet, marking each discovery site and calculating angles and distances. If this pattern holds, and we factor in the full moon's trajectory tomorrow night, her finger landed on a small cove on the far side of the lake. This is where the next item should appear, and possibly where the doorway will open widest. Marcus stood up, determination hardening his features. Then that's where we'll be waiting. The preparations began immediately. Agent Reed coordinated with Officer Jameson to secure the area, keeping the growing crowd of onlookers and media at a distance. Equipment was set up to monitor energy fluctuations and cameras positioned to record whatever might happen. As evening approached, May pulled Bria aside, her expression troubled. "There's something I need to tell you," she said quietly. "Something about when Nora returned." Bria felt a chill of foreboding. "What is it?" "My parents were so happy to have her back. They ignored the differences." May's voice dropped lower. "But I was her twin. I knew her better than anyone. And the girl who came back. There were moments when I looked in her eyes and saw someone else looking back." "What are you saying?" Bria whispered. "Just be careful. Make sure it's really your children who return." May pressed a small object into Bria's hand, a silver locket. This was Nora's. She said it helped her remember who she was when the other memories tried to take over. Before Bria could ask more questions, Agent Reed called them to review the final plan. They would form a circle of stones at the designated cove at exactly 11:47 p.m., when the full moon would be directly overhead. Each person had a role to play. Mr. Finch, with his grandfather's knowledge, May with her sister's experience, and the parents with their connection to the twins. As twilight deepened into dusk, they loaded equipment into boats and set out across the lake. The water was unnaturally still, reflecting the stars and rising moon like a perfect mirror. No one spoke much during the crossing, each lost in their own thoughts and prayers. The small cove was hidden behind a rocky outcropping. A narrow beach of smooth stones gave way to dense forest. It felt older here somehow, the trees taller and more gnarled, their shadows deeper. "This is the place," Agent Reed confirmed, checking her instruments. "The energy readings are already stronger than anywhere else we've measured." They worked quickly, arranging the glittering stones in the pattern described in Mr. Finch's grandfather's journal, a spiral that began at the water's edge and curved inward to form a circle. Bria placed the twins' toys, both the originals and the duplicates that had mysteriously appeared at key points in the pattern. Mr. Whiskers and Thunder, the hair ribbon and shoelace, each marking a cardinal direction. "Now what?" Marcus asked when they finished. "Now we wait," May replied, her eyes fixed on the rising moon. As the minutes ticked by, the stone circle began to glow faintly, the glittering elements catching the moonlight and seeming to amplify it. The air grew heavy with anticipation, charged like the moments before a thunderstorm. At exactly 11:47, the moon reached its zenith, directly above the cove. Its reflection on the lake's surface formed a perfect silver path leading straight to their stone circle. "Something's happening," Agent Reed said sharply, her instruments beeping frantically. The water at the edge of the circle began to bubble and churn, though there was no heat. The glittering stones pulsed with light, their symbols now clearly visible without the magnifying glass, glowing blue-white against the darkness. A mist rose from the lake, not the heavy fog from the day of the disappearance, but a shimmering, translucent veil that danced with tiny points of light. It hovered over the water, then began to move toward the shore, following the moon's reflection. "Zara! Zeke!" Bria called, stepping forward. May caught her arm. "Wait! Let it come to us." The mist reached the stone circle and paused, as if testing an invisible barrier. Then it began to swirl, faster and faster, forming a column of spiraling light and mist. Inside the column, shapes began to appear, indistinct at first, then more solid. Two small figures holding hands, their features blurred by the swirling mist. "Are those?" Marcus breathed. "I think so," Agent Reed whispered, her scientific detachment momentarily forgotten. The figures moved closer, almost reaching the edge of the stone circle. For a brief moment, the mist cleared enough to see their faces. Faces that looked like Zara and Zeke, but with eyes that seemed to reflect the same glittering light as the stones. Then suddenly, the column of mist collapsed. The stone circle stopped glowing. The figures vanished. "No!" Bria cried, rushing forward. "Come back!" She dropped to her knees at the edge of the now ordinary circle of stones, tears streaming down her face. We were so close. Mr. Finch knelt beside her, examining the stones with a frown. "Something's changed," he said. "Look." The stones had rearranged themselves, forming new patterns, new symbols. Agent Reed photographed the changed configuration while Mr. Finch consulted his grandfather's journal. "It's a message," he said, finally. "It says, 'When moon touches water, truth will be revealed.' But the moon is touching the water right now," Marcus said, gesturing to the bright reflection. May shook her head. "Not like this. The old stories speak of a time when the moon literally touches the water, the full moon's reflection creating a perfect circle with no breaks." "That would be incredibly rare," Agent Reed mused. "The water would need to be completely still, with the moon at exactly the right angle." "Sandafers, when?" Bria demanded. "When will that happen?" Agent Reed calculated quickly on her tablet. Based on the moon's trajectory and the lake's position, 3 nights from now, just after midnight. As they gathered their equipment to return to the cabin, no one noticed the small, wet footprints that appeared on the beach behind them. Footprints that led from the water's edge to the stone circle and back again, though no one had walked that path. And in the center of the circle, arranged in a perfect line, lay 7 more glittering stones that hadn't been there before, their symbols spelling out a final warning that would remain undiscovered until morning. Dawn broke with a heavy mist hovering over Lake Willow. Marcus was the first to return to the cove, unable to sleep after the previous night's events. The sight that greeted him sent him running back to the cabin for the others. "There's something new," he gasped, bursting through the door. "More stones! They weren't there when we left." Within the hour, they had all assembled at the cove once more. Agent Reed photographed the scene before anyone approached the stone circle. 7 new stones lay in a perfect line through the center of their spiral arrangement, each bearing symbols more deeply etched than those they had seen before. "These weren't here last night," Agent Reed confirmed. "And look at the wet footprints leading to and from the water." Small, child-sized prints were still visible in the damp sand. 2 sets that approached the circle from the lake and returned the same way. Bria knelt beside one footprint, her fingers hovering above it. "Zara wears size 2. Zeke, size 3. These match." "But how?" Marcus asked. "We were right here. We would have seen them." Mr. Finch was already examining the new stones with May's magnifying glass. "The symbols are different," he said, tracing them with his fingertip. "More urgent, somehow." "What do they say?" Bria asked, joining him. It took nearly an hour of careful consultation with the journal before Mr. Finch looked up, his face troubled. "It's a warning," he said, "or perhaps an instruction. Not all can return. What belongs here stays here What belongs there stays there. Choose wisely. When moon meets water. Choose, Marcus repeated. Choose what? Between Zara and Zeke? I don't think so, May said, her voice quivering slightly. I think it means choose between what is real and what only appears real. Agent Reed frowned. Could you clarify that? May touched one of the stones gently. The in-between place. It changes people. Or maybe it replaces them. Nora used to say she felt like two people sometimes, herself and someone else watching through her eyes. A chill silence fell over the group. Are you suggesting, Agent Reed said carefully, that what we saw last night, those figures that looked like the twins, might not actually be the twins? Or not entirely them, May replied. The beings, there. They want to come here. They might use the children as vessels. Bria clutched Marcus's arm, her face pale. How do we know? How do we make sure we get our real children back? The locket, May said suddenly. That's why Nora gave it to me. It has pictures of us as children. She said it helped her remember who she really was. Bria pulled out the silver locket May had given her the previous night. Inside were tiny, faded photographs of two identical little girls, May and Nora as children. We need something similar, Agent Reed said. Something that will trigger genuine memories. In the twins when they cross over. If they cross over. They're BDE toys, Marcus suggested. The real ones, not the duplicates. And this, Bria added, pulling out her phone. She scrolled through photos until she found one taken just days before their vacation. The whole family making silly faces at the camera. If we print this, make it small enough to fit in the locket. Agent Reed nodded. It's worth trying, but we need to be prepared for all possibilities, including the possibility that what comes through may not be your children at all. The preparations consumed the next 2 days. Agent Reed brought in additional equipment, including thermal cameras and electromagnetic field detectors. Officer Jameson established a tighter security perimeter, keeping the media and curious onlookers well away from the cove. Mr. Finch delved deeper into his grandfather's journals, seeking any additional information about previous crossings. There's a pattern, he reported. Throughout the lake's history, people have disappeared and sometimes returned. But the returns always happen on what my grandfather called the night of perfect reflection, when the full moon aligns directly over the lake. May spent hours with Bria, sharing everything she could remember about Nora's return and the subtle changes that followed. She couldn't eat strawberries anymore, though they'd been her favorite. And she spoke differently, used words she'd never known before. Little things that only I noticed. How will I know? Bria asked. How will I know if it's really them? May squeezed her hand. A twin knows. Despite everything, I always knew Nora was still in there. Even when something else was trying to take over. You'll know your children. On the morning of the third day, Bria woke to find Marcus standing on the porch, staring at the lake. Look, he said when she joined him. Across the glassy surface of Lake Willow, something impossible was happening. The water was arranging itself into patterns, concentric circles spreading from the center, though there was no wind or disturbance to cause them. Agent Reed's instruments recorded the phenomenon, but could offer no scientific explanation. The water molecules appear to be organizing themselves, she reported. I've never seen anything like it. By afternoon, The lake was unnaturally still, a perfect mirror reflecting the clouds and surrounding mountains with crystalline clarity. Even the usual lake sounds, lapping waves, jumping fish, calling birds, had fallen silent. "It's preparing," May whispered. As sunset approached, they made their final preparations. Bria placed the real Mr. Whiskers and Thunder in a special position within a new stone arrangement. The silver locket, now containing the family photo, hung from a slender chain between them. "Remember the warning," Mr. Finch cautioned. "Choose wisely when moon meets water. Whatever appears tonight, you must be certain before inviting it across the threshold." Darkness fell. The nearly full moon rose, casting a brilliant silver pathway across the motionless lake. They gathered at the cove, waiting for midnight when the moon would reach its perfect position directly above them. "Will it work?" Bria asked, clutching Marcus's hand. "It has to," he replied. As the minutes ticked toward midnight, the stones in their circle began to glow once more. The air crackled with energy. The lake's surface shimmered, though still perfectly smooth. Something was emerging from the depths, not figures this time, but wet footprints appearing. On the surface of the water itself, walking slowly toward the shore, toward home. Everyone stood frozen, watching the impossible sight of footprints appearing on the lake's surface. Two sets, side by side, walking with deliberate slowness toward the shore. "Midnight," Agent Reed whispered, checking her watch. "It's starting." The moon had reached its zenith, its reflection forming a perfect circle on the still water. Where the footprints passed through this reflection, tiny ripples spread outward, the only disturbance on the lake's mirror-like surface. Stone circle began to pulse with light, matching the rhythm of the ripples on the water. The air above the circle shimmered, like heat rising from hot pavement, but there was no warmth. In fact, the temperature had dropped sharply, their breath now visible in small clouds. "Zara? Zeke?" Bria called, her voice trembling. No answer came, but the footprints paused momentarily before continuing their advance. "Something's not right," May murmured, clutching her shawl tighter around her shoulders. When Nora returned, there was a sound, like bells or chimes. As if responding to her words, a high, crystalline tone filled the air. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, resonating in their bones rather than their ears. The sound grew louder as the footprints reached the edge of the lake. Then, where water met land, a vertical seam of light appeared, a crack in the air itself, stretching from the ground up about 4 feet, the height of a child. The crack widened, spilling a strange, shifting light that wasn't quite any color found in nature. Through this opening, they caught glimpses of another place, a landscape of crystal formations and strange, flowing shapes. The light there moved like water, casting no shadows, illuminating everything equally. "The in-between place," Mr. Finch breathed. 2 silhouettes appeared in the opening, backlit by the strange light. Child-sized figures, holding hands. They stepped forward, and the crack began to close behind them. "Zara! Zeke!" Marcus shouted, starting forward. Agent Reed grabbed his arm. "Wait! Remember the warning!" The figures moved closer to the edge of the stone circle, but stopped just short of crossing it. Now they could see the children clearly. They looked exactly like Zara and Zeke, wearing the same clothes they had disappeared in, without a speck of dirt or sign of hardship. Their eyes reflected the glittering light of the stones. "Mom? Dad?" the figure resembling Zara said, her voice slightly off. Too musical, too perfect. We found our way back, the Zeke figure added, his voice similarly altered. Bria stepped forward, stopping at the edge of the stone circle. "My babies," she whispered. "Is it really you?" The children smiled in unison, identical smiles that neither of them had ever worn before. "Of course it's us," they said together. "Let us come home." Marcus moved to stand beside Bria. "What happened to you? Where have you been?" "In the glitter place," they answered, still speaking in unsettling synchronization. "It's beautiful. There. Time feels funny. We weren't gone long." May touched Bria's shoulder, her expression worried. "Ask them something only they would know. Something personal." Bria swallowed hard. "Zara, what did you say to Zeke the night before we left for vacation? When you had a bad dream?" The Zara figure's smile faltered slightly. I don't remember having a bad dream." "And Zeke," Marcus said, "what do you always say to Zara when she's scared?" The Zeke figure tilted his head as if listening to a distant voice. "I tell her not to be afraid." Bria and Marcus exchanged glances. That wasn't right. The twins' special saying had always been, "Twins stick together." "See the toys?" Bria said, pointing to Mr. Whiskers and Thunder placed within the stone circle. "Your favorite toys. Don't you want them?" Both children looked at the toys with curious detachment rather than recognition. "Those are just toys," the Zara figure said dismissively. "We don't need them anymore." Marcus felt a chill run through him. The real Zara would never speak of Mr. Whiskers that way. "Look what else we have," Bria said, lifting the silver locket. She opened it, revealing the family photo inside. "Remember this day? Making silly faces for the camera?" The children stared at the photo without emotion. Then, slowly, something changed in their eyes. A flicker of recognition, quickly suppressed. "Let us in," they said again, more insistently now. "The door won't stay open long." The stone circle's light pulsed more intensely. The air around the children seemed to waver, their outlines momentarily blurring. "It's not them," May whispered. "Or not just them." "What do we do?" Bria asked, desperately. "Our real children might be in there somewhere." The crystal tone in the air changed pitch, becoming more urgent. The crack of light behind the children began to reappear, widening again. "They can't stay between worlds much longer," Mr. Finch warned. "You have to decide." Marcus looked at the stone message again. "Choose wisely when moon meets water." What exactly were they choosing? To let these altered versions of their children return? To send them back? Neither option seemed right. Then Bria gasped, sudden understanding dawning on her face. She knelt, picking up one of the glittering stones from the circle. "It's not about choosing which children to let in," she said. "It's about choosing which world they belong to." Before anyone could stop her, she stepped into the stone circle, approaching the children. They reached for her with eager hands, but she moved past them, toward the crack of light behind them. Bria, "No!" Marcus cried, but she was already peering through the opening, the strange light illuminating her determined face. "Our real children are still in there," she called back. "I can feel it. These are just echoes, copies." The children turned toward her, their expressions suddenly shifting to something alien and angry. "You can't go there," they said in unison, voices no longer even attempting to sound childlike. "It's not for you." Twins stick together, Bria said firmly, holding up the locket. That's what my children always say. And if you won't come out, then I'm going in to get them. She turned to Marcus. The real stones need to stay here. And the false children need to go back. That's the choice. Before he could respond, Bria stepped through the crack of light and vanished into the glittering world beyond. The false children screamed, a sound like breaking glass. The crack widened further, the light spilling out more intensely. And, somewhere in that light, Marcus heard a familiar voice, Zara's real voice, calling his name. "Dad! Help us!" Without hesitation, Marcus lunged forward, but Agent Reed and Mr. Finch grabbed him. "Wait!" Agent Reed shouted. "We don't know what happens if too many people cross." The false children were changing, their forms becoming less solid, more like the glittering mist that had preceded their appearance. Their faces stretched and distorted, expressions of rage and frustration replacing the eerie smiles. "You can't have them back," they hissed in voices no longer childlike. "They belong to us, now." Marcus wrenched free of the restraining hands. "Those are my children." The crack of light pulsed wider, and through it, Marcus caught glimpses of Bria moving through a crystalline landscape, calling for the twins. "Marcus!" May cried. "The stones! Use the stones!" Understanding flashed through him. He grabbed the original toys, Mr. Whiskers and Thunder, and the locket with the family photo. With these clutched to his chest, he stepped into the stone circle. The false children tried to block his path, their forms swirling around him like angry smoke, but they seemed unable to touch him while he held the toys. "Dad!" came Zeke's voice now, distant but unmistakably real. "Follow Mom." Marcus stepped through the crack of light. The sensation was like plunging into ice water, then emerging instantly into heavy, syrup-thick air. Colors that had no names swirled around him. Crystal formations rose like trees, catching light and, splintering it into impossible patterns. The ground beneath his feet wasn't solid, but neither was he falling. It was as if gravity worked differently here, allowing him to walk on surfaces that shifted like water. "Bria!" he called. "Zara! Zeke!" His voice sounded strange, echoing in ways that made no sense, as if time itself were fragmented here. "Marcus! Over here!" He turned to see Bria about 50 yards away, though distance seemed meaningless in this place. She was kneeling beside two small figures huddled against a crystal formation, the real twins. They looked different from the imposters who had tried to cross over. These children were disheveled, their clothes dirty and torn. Zara's hair was tangled, and Zeke had a scratch on his cheek. They looked like children who had been lost for weeks, not the pristine duplicates who had appeared at the stone circle. Marcus ran to them, the strange physics of this world making his movements feel both faster and slower than they should be. When he reached them, he dropped to his knees, gathering all three into his arms. "Dad!" the twins cried in genuine, unsynchronized voices. "We have to leave now," Bria said urgently. "This place, it's closing." She was right. The crack of light that had been their entrance was shrinking, the edges pulling together like a wound healing. "How did you find us?" Zara asked, clutching Mr. Whiskers as Marcus handed it to her. "We followed the signs you left," he explained, giving Thunder to Zeke, who hugged the wooden train to his chest. "The toys that appeared, the stones with messages." "We didn't leave those," Zeke said, confused. "We've been trapped here the whole time." "Then who?" Marcus began, but a sound like splintering glass interrupted him. The false children had followed them through, but here, in the in-between place, their disguises were failing completely. They were creatures of light and crystal, only vaguely humanoid, with facets where faces should be. "You cannot take what belongs here," they said, their voices like wind through broken windows. "These are our children," Bria said fiercely. "They don't belong here." "All twins belong here," the creatures insisted. "Half in your world, half in ours already. We simply complete the transition." Marcus suddenly understood. The stones, the toys appearing, that wasn't the twins sending messages. It was you, trying to lure us. "We need vessels to cross over," the creatures admitted. "As you need vessels to return." The crack of light was closing rapidly now, their exit shrinking to a sliver. "Run!" Marcus shouted, lifting Zeke while Bria grabbed Zara. They sprinted toward the closing doorway, the crystal beings gliding after them with unnatural speed. The air grew thicker, harder to move through, as if the in-between place itself was trying to hold them. "The locket!" May's voice somehow reached them through the diminishing crack. "Use the locket!" Bria pulled out the silver locket, holding it toward the pursuing creatures. The family photo inside seemed to glow with its own light. Here, and when the creatures saw it, they recoiled as if burned. Memories are anchors, Bria realized. They can't touch what's truly connected to our world. With the creatures temporarily halted, they made a final desperate lunge toward the closing crack. Marcus went first, pushing Zeke through, then helping Zara across. Bria came last, diving through just as the opening sealed behind her. They landed hard on the beach, within the stone circle that still pulsed with fading light. The crystal tone that had filled the air faded to silence. The perfect reflection of the moon on the lake rippled and broke as a sudden breeze stirred the water. It was over. The family clung to each other, hardly believing they were all truly back. The twins were sobbing, clutching their toys, while Bria and Marcus held them tightly, afraid to let go. Agent Reed approached cautiously. "Is everyone okay?" It took days for the twins to tell their story, how they had been lost in the fog, found themselves in the crystal world, and been kept there by the beings who wanted to study them and learn how to take their forms. They couldn't explain how time worked there, only that it felt like both days and months had passed simultaneously. Life gradually returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after such an experience. The family moved back to their city home, and the twins started therapy to help process their trauma. They slept in the same room now, unwilling to be separated even briefly. 3 months after returning home, the Palmer family gathered in their living room for a quiet movie night. The twins had finally stopped having nightmares every night, and Bria and Marcus were slowly learning to relax their constant vigilance. As they settled onto the couch with popcorn, Marcus picked up a photo album to move it off the coffee table. It fell open to pictures from their first day at Lake Willow, taken before the twins disappeared. That's when he saw it. In the background of a family photo taken on the beach, partially hidden by trees at the edge of the frame, stood 2 small figures watching them. 2 figures that looked exactly like Zara and Zeke. His blood ran cold as he stared at the image. How could the twins be in the background when they were clearly also in the foreground, smiling with their parents? In the next room, he heard the twins laughing together, their voices perfectly synchronized for just a moment, something that had been happening with increasing frequency lately. And when they both turned to look at him through the doorway, Their eyes caught the light. Strangely, glittering like the stones from Lake Willow. Thanks for joining me in this story. Where are you listening from? Drop your location in the comments below. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps spread these stories to more listeners around the world and keeps the kindness flowing. Don't let the mystery end here. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another chilling tale that will keep you guessing until the very end. Until next time, sweet dreams. If you can sleep after this ending,